Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Good, I hope. Back for another live stream. Going to take a look at the water anomalies that I mentioned in yesterday's live stream. Got quite a few to look at. Hey, everybody. Michael, Mrs. Watcher. Hello, Debbie Craft, Blanche. How's everybody doing? Hey, Lisa. What's up, guys? Looks like a pretty decent day today. Got some weather moving in, though. At least out here in the desert southwest. We're going to take a look at that here in a little bit. Got some pictures from South Carolina of those storms we were looking at yesterday. During yesterday's live stream, we were watching the storms roll through southern Georgia. They were headed up into South Carolina. They'll be in my next video that has a sky phenomena section in it. Got some really wild looking clouds out of South Carolina. Just amazing. Actually, a little video clip too. Cool looking skies. But in this video, we're going to look at the water anomalies. Most of these are from 2018. Back when we had the wildlife acting just different all over the world, and like the wildlife, the water anomaly thing that I'm about to show you was not something I set out to do. It just began. It wasn't like one day I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a bunch of X's all over this globe. I decided to do it after the fact, after I started getting all of these pictures and videos, and you know, it was people from around the world that kept pointing, you know, it out, and then I put it on a map, and I'm like, wow, you know, there's something. You know, it looked like there's something going on, you know, with the water. And I'm sure over the millennia, you know, it's done the same thing. It's just in our lifetimes, you know, we'd never really seen anything like that collectively. We never had the means to see anything like that collectively. And if we hadn't have had internet and smartphones, we'd have never seen it. So, you know, it's something that could have happened before, and we just didn't have the technology to even notice that it was going on. But we're noticing it now, and it's something that's, you know, it's new. It's fairly new to us. So we assume that it's never happened, and you know, quite possibly maybe it is something that's normal. But I go by people that have lived in these areas for, oh my goodness, 30 years, 40 years, their whole life. And you can go back a generation, and some of these water anomalies that you're about to see based off of people that lived there had never seen anything like it before. So with or without, you know, smartphone technology and things like that, according to the locals, this type of stuff had never happened. So we're going to take a look at some of these water anomalies, going through a little slideshow I put together right now. And like I said, most of these that you're going to see, one of them is from the Gulf of Thailand. It is amazing. People are walking out for as far as the eye could see, picking up stuff off of the bottom of the seafloor that they've never seen before. I mean, it's really kind of strange to see. You'll see it here in just a minute. It's coming up. Yeah, a big portion of the Gulf of Thailand, right there where that orange icon just showed up on the globe right in that area, just a little bit north of there. People walking out, picking up stuff off of the bottom of the ocean, or the ocean floor that, like I said, they'd never seen. So they were quite astonished at what they were even looking at. They'd never seen the water go out that far. And, you know, it was confirmed by like a generation of people that had never seen it. So a lot of this stuff was a first time. Some of it, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But we're going to hop into it here in just a second. Here's I'll show you the picture here real quick. Picture you're looking at is out of the Gulf of Thailand. And see, people are out there walking around for the first time, looking at whatever they can find, you know, probably looking for treasure out of ships, who knows, you know. These people had never seen the water retreat like that. And if you look off in the distance, see the people off in the distance over there? You can see that area has been dredged out before, you know, when they dig out the rivers so that barges and ships can continue their routes without getting stuck. If too much silt or whatever builds up at the bottom of a river or a big bay like this, sometimes they'll dredge part of the area where there's a lot of ship traffic, just in case the silt builds up and the water gets too shallow. Well, you can tell they've done that here, and the water still disappeared. It's gone. Went clear out past that island over there. It just vanished, and there's dozens of people out here looking for whatever they can find. Probably historic artifacts. You know, they've looked out there and never seen anything but water. And then one day it's gone. And again, 2018, I want to say this occurred around March. And it was a first, at least for us, you know, and for me. And the person that shared it with me, they had never seen anything like that. And if you look off in the distance, you can see probably more than 24. There's probably up to 50 people out in the distance walking way out there, picking up unique artifacts that, you know, have never been seen for who knows how long. Really weird. But there was a lot of water movement back in 2018. Now we'll get to another picture here. I've got a video slideshow I put together. It's a photo that was sent in from the New York area. Not exactly sure of the location, but just looking at where the water has retreated, doesn't look like it's something that occurred very often. And if ever, I don't know. I don't want to say for sure on this area. This is something that has happened in the past, but it doesn't look like it. I mean, you can see old boards and different things laying there that probably haven't seen the light of day for eons. And the person took the photo because it looked different. You know, they'd not seen this part of the harbor look like this before. So the water, for whatever reasons, just retreated and went somewhere. I mean, it came back, but it was gone for a while, and it was way more than just a, you know, low tide event. So this was in the States, up in New York, and I've got some other ones that occurred, I think, off the coast of Connecticut. And that one there that you're looking at, that's off of the coast of South America. And that was one of the, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first ones that we saw. And it retreated for quite some ways, and a long ways up and down the coast. Again, you know, leaving boats sitting on soil, mud. See the tires, the chains that are used for anchors, the floats, the buoys are sitting on the mud. And if you look at the seawall behind the boats, and you can see the tires on the seawall, those are up probably a good 5 feet in some areas. That's to keep the boats protected from bumping into the concrete. That's a lot of water. And, you know, you got to ask yourself, where did it go? What type of force had the strength to move that much water? You know, the earth itself would be the only thing I can think of. That's a lot of water right there that disappeared from that little area. And it was actually quite a large area. Got several pictures now in a little slideshow I put together. When this all kind of started, I started to see a pattern, so I put together a map. And this is what it looks like, you know. I mean, there's the Gulf of Thailand that we're going to. You guys have already seen that picture. There's a couple other pictures, you know. Just dozens of people walking out on what looks like a rocky beach. And the water is completely gone. Look at all those people. You know, and there wasn't a cyclone or anything like that. Typhoons. You can see it was a sunny day. Blue skies. People out there digging in the soil looking for stuff. Spain, remember this one? This was created or influenced by Storm Emma, and it pulled the water away from the shore to where it revealed a 2,000-year-old Roman aqueduct from a long time ago that had never been seen. Here's the photo here from South America. Now we're going up into the coastal United States. This is along the East Coast. I want to say up in the Connecticut area. Yeah, this is from the Connecticut area. Young man, never seen the water go out quite that far. I'm thinking this is from the New York area right here. And this here is from Connecticut. That's why he's pointing at the shoreline. He'd never seen that much exposed before. It was just a little larger than a low tide event, according to him. You know, and he should know, he lives there. That's who you have to, you know, listen to, the people that live in these areas. Like right there, you're looking at these nice boats that are just tipped over on their side. On the you know, the bottom of the canal or the bay. When these boats are made, they're not made necessarily to sit on the river bottoms or the lake bottoms or the ocean bottoms. They're designed for buoyancy, not to be sitting on the ground. But there they are, tipped over. I mean, those are some nice boats. Here's an area here of waterfront property, and the water disappeared. So the value of those homes dropped with the water. Luckily, it came back. But if it didn't, then those homes were no longer waterfront property homes. These are from the Carolinas. I want to say in the North Carolina area. Here's yet another example of a boat sitting in the mud up against the dock. You know, it's probably got damage from that. You know, they're not designed for that. So, you know, all that you're seeing here were very unusual to the observers. And these are, of course, all people that live in these areas. This is Brian from Navarre, Florida. Sits inside that Florida Panhandle. And on this day, it's 2018, the water went out much, much farther than he had ever noticed before. Not an extreme event, but enough to where, he noticed it. This is Clearwater, Florida. This is a rogue wave. You can see people are nice and comfortable in those little blue tents, and then here come this wave of water just out of nowhere. They would have never set those there if they knew the water was going to do that ahead of time. But that happens, rogue waves have always occurred. This is the Mississippi River. I talked about this yesterday. Water disappeared from the Mississippi, and the middle of the Mississippi River turned into a giant sandbar. And people walked out there like they did in the Gulf of Thailand, looking for things that they never had a chance to look for before. It was amazing. I read several articles about that. People had walked out into the middle of the Mississippi River. This is down off the coast of South America once again. As far as you can see, no water. And I was told, I went ahead and included this picture. This is over in England in the St. Ives area. I was told that that was a normal occurrence, but I don't know. I don't live in that area, so that could have been normal. I think if I remember correctly, someone did tell me that that was in fact the case. That happens over there from time to time for whatever reasons. So I have to go with that because the locals would know better than anybody else. But this, you can tell, there's a lot of water gone out of that Gulf, the Gulf of Thailand. It's pretty good size. It's about, I don't know, half the size of the Gulf of Mexico. It's like seeing half of the Gulf of Mexico just void of water, just gone. It would be, quite shocking to people that live along the Gulf of Mexico. As far as I know, that's never happened, but, it could have over the years. I know waters and the shorelines around Earth have changed constantly. We just don't see the changes, majorly, major changes all at once. They're very slow normally. What we were seeing here with these water anomalies was more than just gradual. Water disappeared, and it disappeared pretty quick, and it slowly came back. Like it went inside of a big ballast, like a ship has ballast that they intentionally put water inside the walls of ships for buoyancy. So that's like we were thinking out loud one day, did the water go inside the earth and then slowly came back out? Because the earth isn't like a Tupperware bowl. There's cracks all over the earth, the surface of the earth. So water goes in and out under the earth. But what caused this? And just in 2018. And then it like I said, like with the wildlife creatures, this stopped, at least with me personally, and everybody out there that shares pictures and stuff. This phenomena just kind of stopped. It just happened for like 12 months, all of 2018, and I want to say part of 2017. And I've got more. I'm still looking for more. It's just I told you guys I would do it today, and I like to keep my word, But I do have more from Ecuador, from India. I've got quite a few more, to be honest. But this went on for part of 2017, 2018, and then that was it. Haven't seen any more, very large ones like what we're looking at here. Haven't seen one. This here is in the North Carolina area. And on this particular day, it was rather extreme. To the viewer, the viewer lives there, had never seen the water out that far. So we'll have to watch with the upcoming supermoon of March 9th. That's Monday. Got a big supermoon. Pay attention if you live along the coastal areas and when the tides occur on that day. Like this here is a rogue wave that surprised these people. They would not have set up their shade tents if they knew that was going to happen. they got completely surprised by a rogue wave. But again, that's something that happens. I've got some from San Diego, the southern part of California. I've got quite a few more, and I'll get to them. Mississippi River. People, like I said, walked out there. They went out there. I read an article. They went out there with metal detectors. They were out there looking for old coins and things. Just unbelievable. But you ask yourself, where did the water go? Why did it go there? And how did it come back? It just naturally and slowly came back. Got some from Italy. I have those in the next, actually out in the Mediterranean Sea. A small island, had a couple of pictures sent from there. Actually have a rogue wave and some water that also disappeared like you're seeing here. South Africa, I'll have those in the next one. South Africa was quite large, if I remember right. Covered a very big area like you see here in Thailand. And it makes you wonder what those people found out there. They were having a heyday, whatever it was they were finding. They'd never been out there before like that. And it wasn't created by a storm. I've also got Bahamas on this map. This was influenced by a storm. And 2017 was a record year for storms. Remember Emma, Irma, Hurricane Maria. There were a lot of big storms that year. And the Bahamas, the water vanished along the west coast of the Bahamas, and it vanished out of Tampa Bay. Do you guys remember that? People were walking out in Tampa Bay completely baffled, taking pictures. People were walking off the coast of the Bahamas a mile out. They'd never walked out that far before. And supposedly it was induced by Hurricane Irma. Remember we talked yesterday about how hurricanes pull up, and as the hurricane went by, supposedly it pulled the water away from the coastline, the low pressure. I mean, and when it went, it wasn't even anywhere near Tampa, to be honest, but for some reason Tampa Bay completely drained too. And Irma was in South Florida. I still haven't figured out how that happened, but that's what, it's what we were told, so just went with it. Don't know how these happened. These weren't under any type of stormy conditions. Most of these where you can see the sky, blue sky, sunny, nice day. But that's why I didn't put the pictures that were supposedly caused by Hurricane Irma on here. But you can Google it. I'm sure the pictures are still there. Tampa Bay was completely empty. And that was in September of 2017. And it was after that, to be honest, is when it kind of started showing up in other areas. And maybe it was from all these storms that we had. I don't know, though. Because I've followed hurricanes for 16 years. And I don't remember seeing that type of water disappearing, or that's something I would have remembered. Heck, I was in 3 hurricanes on the outside of a 4th. And I don't remember seeing anything on the news or anybody talking about water retreating from coastlines. I was in Hurricane Charlie. That was a Cat 4 that made landfall in Punta Gorda, Florida. Was supposed to come into the Tampa Bay area and made a hard right-hand turn right before it got up to Tampa. And it made a beeline all the way up to Orlando. 120 miles away. Did a lot of damage. And from what I remember, there was no water away from any shorelines. And it was a small Cat 4. But I was out in the eye wall. That storm went right over my head. I remember seeing the leading edge of the outer bands coming up inland and they were a turquoise color, turquoise green, pretty tall, probably a good 50,000 foot. But it was a small storm, but it came right at us. And next thing you know, once the wind slowed down and the rain stopped, it got real quiet. You went outside and you could look right up through the eye wall. And it wasn't very big. Wasn't even but maybe 12 miles wide. And then here come the backside of the storm. But it was a strong storm, made landfalls a Cat 4. And supposedly that right there in St. Ives, maybe somebody can confirm that. Does that happen quite a bit over there? I know we've got some pictures from Newfoundland too that Philip shared of water coming up along the coastlines of parts of Newfoundland. Water getting higher and higher, not lower and lower. I'll find those pictures that Philip shared with me from Newfoundland, and you can totally tell the water is coming up in some areas along the roads, coastal Newfoundland. That's the ancient, that's an old Roman aqueduct, a couple thousand years old. I'll come back to the rest of the pictures later. We're going to switch gears onto some other things here real quick, but there we go. All right, I was talking yesterday about the jet stream. When we were tracking those storms through southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, Alabama, and then over into Georgia. And then today they're still cruising through like South Carolina and parts of North Carolina. And then everything's going to clear out for a while. But I was talking about the jet stream. And, you know, it's changed quite a bit just in the last, 72 hours. But this is what I was talking about down here. This low jet. That's what's been bringing all of the moisture into Mississippi, Louisiana, even over into Georgia and Alabama. The ground is so saturated. And right there's the engine that's causing all that. In fact, between these two jets, now we're getting one. It's not necessarily a polar jet, but it's more of a polar jet than what we've had. This isn't a polar jet here. And that's really what we normally deal with this time of year. Well, now we're going to have two converge over here. Well, they are converging right now just offshore. And if that convergence zone was a little closer to New York, New Jersey, you guys would be seeing a big storm in the next day or two. But that's offshore, and that's going to head towards Great Britain. So this energy is headed over that way again. There's a very good chance that there could be yet another named storm in Ireland, Scotland, Great Britain, parts of Northern Europe in the next 3 to 4 days. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. And this is the catalyst right here, this low jet stream. That's why there's been so many storms way over here in the North Atlantic, over and over and over. They've had a record-setting year with rain this first part of 2020. It's not spring yet. It's still winter. I was getting ready to say spring because it's raining like spring, but it's not spring yet. But to look at that jet stream, you'd think it was. But that's what was causing the severe weather yesterday, or it was one of the main components. And today there's some right in here. Not too much, but that's where I got the pictures from South Carolina that I'll show you in my next video. Really wild looking. They're strange, trust me. They are really bizarre. That was at nullschool.net. Now we're over here at weather charts. I want to start off in the Pacific, and then I mentioned earlier there's a storm that's headed towards the North Atlantic again, or at least there's a pretty good chance of it. That low jet and the jet above it are going to create this low right here that's going to bring quite a bit of moisture to the not only the desert Southwest, but to coastal California. So any of those areas right in there that if you're in a burn scar area, just a big heads up, because those hilltops are not going to hold any water, and it's created rock slides and mudslides in the past. We saw the one coming that happened a couple of years ago because there was a big storm that brought 4 inches of rain, and unfortunately it did create mudslides in parts of coastal California and in Montecito and that area, where we're getting another low pressure system coming in, and it's going to bring rain to the desert over here, rain to Southern California, South Central California, probably a good 24 hours worth of rain off and on, and that's coming up next Tuesday and Wednesday. That's a forecast. It can and probably will change, but right now it looks pretty solid. So we'll have to keep our eye on that, especially if you're along the coast. I mean, we always welcome a little bit of rain over here in the desert, but it looks like, according to that, and again, this is going to change between now and then, but that's a pretty strong storm system right there. And that's supposed to bring a fair amount of moisture inland. So we'll see. Have to wait and see. Go over to the Atlantic, the North Atlantic, and it's just been a steady flow of low pressure systems. Here's one right there off the coast of Newfoundland. You're going to see some activity again, and you've been seeing a lot of activity this year. That one's a 973 right now as we're doing this video. 968, there's that one I was just talking about. See it right there off the coast of New York? That's got a central low pressure of 966 millibars. That's right in the range of a tropical storm. So if that were, like I said, a little farther inland, you guys would see probably a fair amount of snow. See that low pressure there? High winds. There's got to be rough seas in that area. That's a very windy low pressure. But that's one that's going to move across the North Atlantic. And if it stays together, you can see it's going to bring more moisture over to Ireland. Big wave moving in right there on Monday. Big system. Monday into Tuesday, then clearing out, and then reoccurring on Thursday. Looks like the possibility of maybe snow on Thursday, if I'm looking at that correctly. Ireland, Scotland, snow on Wednesday night into Thursday of next week. That's what it's saying here, and this is a solid source, so look for snow. But again, this is a forecast. It can and more than likely will change a little bit. Don't know how much, but yeah, it'll change. Got a story here coming up out of Turkey I want to share with you guys. I'm just touching on some things that are really super unique here. We've been talking about water anomalies and you know how water's moved around the globe for eons. Well, over here in Turkey, there's a lake. And they just recently, I don't know if you've ever studied this part of the world, but it's quite fascinating. There's some areas here that are quite fascinating, just to say the least. So anyway, we're going to go to that area here right now. That's Lake Van over in Turkey. Well, they've found the ruins of a 3,000-year-old Armenian castle in the bottom of that lake, pretty much intact. And have you ever heard of those? I tell you what, the first time I saw it, I thought I was looking at a set for a movie, but this is real. These things are called, they're right here, fairy chimneys. Have you ever studied those? Have you ever heard of them? Google, it's either chimney fairy, no, it's a fairy chimney. Just Google fairy chimney in Turkey. It is wild. I'd never heard of them until a few years ago, but I've heard of them now. But when I saw this, they found some of those under the water here at this lake. 3,000-year-old remains of an ancient fortification have been discovered at the bottom of Turkey's largest lake. The underwater excavations were led by, I'm not even going to pronounce it, Van Yale out of Yale University and the governorship of Turkey's eastern Bitlis province. The castle, there was a castle they found, is said to belong to the Iron Age Armenian civilization, also known as the Kingdom of Van, Urartu, Ararat, and Armenia. The lake itself is believed to have been formed by a crater caused by a volcanic eruption of Mount Nimrat near the province of Van. The current water level of the reservoir is about 150 meters. That's about 475 feet higher than it was during the Iron Age. So there's another example. Back during the Iron Age, this lake was basically non-existent, and it's there now. It's 450 feet deeper than what it was. So they found a 3,000-year-old castle right in here. And a lot of those chimney fairies. Google chimney fairies when you get a chance. Those things are wild. But anyway, divers exploring Lake Van discovered the incredibly well-preserved wall of a castle, thought to have been built by the Urartu civilization. Experts had been studying the body of water for about 10 years before it revealed the fortress lost deep below its surface. And here's the wall of the castle right there. And here's a whole collection. Let me see if I can zoom in on them for you real quick. Check this out. See those things? Now these are underwater. There are still several of these standing on land today over in Turkey. And if I had the location plugged into Google Earth, we'd go there, but I don't. We're looking at these that are underwater, but these were standing apparently 3,000 years ago, and the ones that you see on land are more than likely the same age. Yeah, they're really unique. Found that story interesting. It's another example of, water moving around. They obviously didn't build the castle underwater, but now it's, over 400 feet below water. And this lake obviously wasn't there back then. So that's a fairly large lake. And according to the article, it's the largest lake, but we can probably look and see for ourselves. Yeah, that's the largest lake in Turkey. Next to the one up in Armenia, but that is definitely quite easily the largest lake in Turkey. See how far it is across. Looks like it's at least a few miles. 113 kilometers across. Pretty good sized lake. Ancient castle discovered in the bottom of Lake Van in eastern Turkey. How about that? Not something you hear of every day. Pretty cool. Google those fairy chimneys if you get a chance. Those are very interesting too. Now we're going to hop off to futurism.com. The gigantic Neptune-sized exoplanet, according to the article and the team of astronomers, is incredibly close. Depends on what your definition of close is. I suppose if you're talking about space, 50 light years is considered close, but a team of astronomers from Penn State, according to an article here dated February 25th of 2020, confirmed the existence of G9-40b, a gigantic super-Earth only about 90 light years from Earth, making it one of the closest known exoplanets. So it's not necessarily probably the closest, it's just the closest known. I'm sure if we could get into Andromeda and study Andromeda real close, there's probably something in there that we haven't found yet. And I think Andromeda, correct me if I'm wrong, is only about 4.5 light years away or something like that. It's pretty close. In fact, another story I got coming up talks about our galaxy colliding with Andromeda Galaxy, which would take millions of years, but apparently it's starting to show signs of it already. But anyway, this exoplanet is at least twice as massive as Earth and may even be as large as Neptune. It was first spotted by NASA's planet hunting telescope Kepler during its K-12 mission in 2019. I was part of the mission, the original mission, back in like 2010. I was one of the first 100,000. I know that's a large number, but I got my name put on a plaque or something somewhere. One of the first planet hunters, and I used to do that actually. You just sit and look for shadows go across the face of a star. That's all you do. You would get a section of the night sky, or of stars, a patch of stars that Kepler had observed, and then you would just continue observing them. And when you saw any variation in the light output, you would just notate at what time you saw that variation in light output. Like if it went dim, like Betelgeuse was doing here recently. And then if it lit back up to its regular luminosity and it did it again, then you had a candidate for a possible planet. If it did it three times in the same amount of time, like Earth, orbits every 365 days. Well, if you found one that was really quick, maybe it orbited every 20 days. And it would be like that. You may make a notation, and then 20 days later you would see it again. And then if you could confirm the same thing 20 days later, you could have a candidate. Believe it or not, I did have one candidate. It never, to my knowledge, was confirmed, but there was, like I said, 100,000 people at the beginning doing that, so they were overwhelmed with data to process and confirm, because it had to be confirmed by a scientist. But I did submit one out of all the stars that I watched through the original Kepler crew. But anyway, the fact that it's only about 90 light years away means it's among the top 20 closest transiting planetary systems known, and is currently the second closest transiting planet discovered by the K2 mission to date, according to a statement by Gudmundur Stephenson, lead author of a paper about the planet published back earlier this month. Astronomers believe the exoplanet is an excellent candidate for a much closer look by the NASA's Webb Space Telescope that is scheduled to launch in March of 2021. So that's one that they're going to consider right here. Neptune-sized exo-Earth. Might have life on it, who knows? There's billions of these out there. There's billions right here in our own galaxy. We were talking about, I think they're talking about Andromeda. It has to be. Yeah. They say here, according to this article, astronomers say something is warping our entire galaxy. And it involves the galactic collision of the Milky Way and our neighboring galaxy, Andromeda. But for some reason, the outer edges of the Milky Way warp and ripple like a bowl full of Jell-O, and nobody knows why. And it's probably the influence of the neighboring galaxy. I mean, that's right. You can see it right there and right there. And that looks like an infrared view of the Milky Way, I'm assuming. But that would be my guess. If everybody had to take a guess, I would say that it's the only thing that could have that type of influence on a galaxy, other than, I suppose, a black hole, would be another galaxy, right? So anyway, that's going to take millions of years. So nothing for us to really worry about. But I would like to see that Webb telescope in action in 2021. I don't know if I'll be a part of that crew, but that's time consuming when you sit and just look at a patch of stars. But I did it for a while. Something I really enjoy, man. I love to study the cosmos and stars and the planets. I had the telescope out this morning. I was chasing that comet over in the Big Dipper. Couldn't find it. It was a little overcast here this morning. I didn't have crystal clear skies, so I couldn't get the picture I was looking for. I couldn't find it to begin with. Took a good look at some of the other planets, because in the morning you can see Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars quite easily. But no comet yet. But I did look. I looked this morning. I was outside very, very early. Meteor strikes the East Coast. Look at that. Article dated March 4th of 2020. Somebody was driving down the road and happened to catch that on their dash cam. Look at that. Bright green. That one doesn't really look green. There was a green fireball over Belgium. I think I told you guys about that one. This one occurred on March 3rd, around 5 o'clock in the morning. There's been quite a bit of fireball activity here lately. And you know what? That's not necessarily uncommon for March. It's really not. March, April, that's when we see the majority. February, that big one we saw years ago, it was a February meteor. So if you're a sky watcher, you know that. It's not necessarily uncommon to see a lot of fireballs. And these are called sporadic because, you know, they're not part of the... Some of these that come in sometimes are pretty good size, like the one we saw down in Indonesia by the volcano. That was a pretty good size rock. But, you know, as far as being huge, no. And it wasn't a problem, you know, it didn't hurt anything. But still, it's pretty good size. You'd have thought it you know, maybe it was part of something bigger, and maybe it was. I don't know. And if it was part of something bigger, you know, maybe it was just not big enough to be seen. That one there you're looking at isn't that big. I mean, I think I've seen one probably that size. That probably wasn't much bigger than a baseball. But check out the 3,000-year-old Armenian castle found in Lake Van, largest lake in eastern Turkey. Pretty interesting story. Once again, storms brewing in the North Atlantic. It's been a steady pattern for the last several weeks, and it doesn't look like it's going to change a whole lot. You're getting breaks in between these storms, but they are just steady one after another. And here's why. Right here. There's the conveyor belt. And it just keeps pumping them out. That's why it's so wet, and there's flooding, and more than likely going to be flooding in parts of Mississippi, Louisiana. There's just no room for water. The water table is full. There has been a mother load of water trucked in, and it looks like there's probably take a quick look here. There's going to be more to come over the next few days. Let's look. Pretty dry for a while. And some more rain coming in Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. There you go on Wednesday night into Thursday. Heavy rain next Friday. And you know, they don't need any rain in there. Look at that. That's just drenching rain again. There's no place for the water to go. I mean, it's full. The ground is saturated. And just 6 months ago, that area was in a drought. So it just goes from one extreme to another. You know, we gotta find that golden mean. Got to find that golden mean. Gonna hop back to these water anomalies here in just a minute, guys. Go over them once again for anybody that's hopped on new here recently. And I'll post the link to the articles down below in the description box. But yeah, Eastern Turkey is a very interesting study. I studied Eastern Turkey about 5 years ago. What you're looking at is lightning from 250 miles above Earth. And those were some tall boys right there, probably 50, 60,000 foot thunderstorms. Not exactly sure of their location, though. But that's lightning visible from the space station. Those are some huge thunderstorms. Here they come again. Here's another round of them. Check this out. That was sent in by Mary. Covers a wide area, too. 250 miles above the Earth. And those storms are, oh, they're easy. 50K. Easy 50K. We were looking at some yesterday that were 60K. 60,000 foot. I mean, that's over 10 miles tall. That's 12 miles. And those right there are probably pretty close. I'd say they're in that same range. Probably close to 60,000. Maybe not quite that tall, but I'd say they're pretty close. Absolutely. What a view. Best seat in the house, huh? That's some intense lightning right there. But you know, if we were closer to other planets, especially like Venus, we would probably see lightning too. From, you know, our distance. I mean, we're too far away right now. Even when you put Venus in a scope, I mean, it's just a glaring, bright orb. Can't really see much unless you've got a, you know, super telescope, 14, 24 inch. The one I have, I can see it. You know, when you look at Venus, believe it or not, it goes through phases like we have with the moon. I remember one time I looked at it years and years ago, and it was like a crescent. And it took me a minute to get my bearings because that wasn't what I was expecting. This was a long, long time ago. Now I expect it. I know I look at Venus, it could be in any type of half, crescent, you know, phase at any given time. Because it goes between us and the moon, or us and the sun, like just like the moon. That's why it does it. So does Mercury. If you could see Mercury, if it's not too far below or above the ecliptic, especially below, it's going to do the same thing. But it's not as visible as it is on Venus. Venus has a strong crescent. Absolutely. So if you're a sky watcher and you got a new scope, check out Venus. It'll be in a crescent phase right now. Evening sky, look west. Evening sky, look west. Like I was saying earlier, guys, with these pictures that I'm sharing with you guys that were shared with me, it wasn't like I set out to do this. This is something that just fell into place. I started getting so many of them that I noticed that it was, you know, more than a coincidence. So I just decided to keep track just to see, you know, like we did with the wildlife. And yeah, you know, it just showed us that there was something going on with the water. Could be quite normal, like I said, but not something that we had necessarily seen recently. Unless there was a big storm, then obviously you can kind of understand water getting pushed away from the coast or too much water coming inland. Of course it's going to do that. I mean, it's water, it's wind, it's going to do it. But to just vanish for like 4 miles away from the coastline and it's a sunny day, you know, it's like, yo, what happened? That's when people are getting their cameras out and taking pictures. Otherwise, you know, they'd be taking pictures every time there was a low tide. If they'd never seen a low tide, Well, these people grew up around the coast. They're very familiar with tides, high tides, low tides. I'm sure they've seen rogue waves once a month, king tides, all that. They're not taking pictures of something they see every day. That's all. So I decided, like this man here from Connecticut, he'd never seen. In fact, I think it was farther out. Over to the right, there's no water there. That's mud. The water had disappeared temporarily. Just looked like a barren, sandy desert for a minute. North Carolina, that's a nice boat right there. And it was not engineered to lay over on its side in the mud. No. It's a water vessel. I'm sure the owner is very proud of his boat or her boat. Wouldn't have left it there under those types of conditions, knowing ahead of time that it's going to do that. See, look at them. They're all scattered out. And this here is waterfront property that quickly turned into no waterfront property. So, the water caused the property value to go down when the water went down. At least temporarily, because it was no longer waterfront property. It's a good thing it came back. But where did it go? That's a lot of water. You got to ask yourself that. That's the thing. The big question here, if you're a thinker, you got to ask yourself, where does that much water go? Is it flooding the other side of the river or the ocean or wherever it may be? Did it go up into the air? Where did it go? That's the thing. Where did it go? It's a lot of water. I mean, you're talking, I don't even know what you're talking about. 100,000 cubic acres? In some areas, like what you saw in the Gulf of Thailand, there's reservoirs that are here holding water that are like 26,000 cubic feet of water, and X amount of cubic acres. Along the coast, you're talking cubic acres easily. That's a lot of water. Where does it just all go? That's the thing. But it came back. That's the cool thing. This is the Mississippi River. People were out walking across the mighty Mississippi. Walking across it with their metal detectors. This, once again, for miles along the coast of South America, the East Coast. Boats sitting in mud. People kind of walking around wondering what's up. Why is my boat sitting in the mud? I will say this area here, St. Ives, UK, I was told that is perfectly normal. I mean, it doesn't look normal, but that's what I was told. So it very well could be. Could happen from time to time. I don't know. But if I remember correctly, someone told me from the UK, and I would trust them if they, that's where they're from. This is not normal right here. I mean, you're talking thousands of cubic feet of water. You're getting into cubic acres here. Easy. The question is, where did it go? That's a lot of water just to hold. And for it to go completely dry like that is baffling. It's just baffling. I just can't fathom where all that water went without causing flooding somewhere else. That's why I was entertaining the idea that it went in the ground and then came back up. Because you didn't hear of any record floods when this water was disappearing. If it went from one coastline to another, then you would hear about flooding somewhere else. Wasn't the case. It was very, very baffling. Where did all that water go? Very baffling. Because you would see these water disappearances, but you wouldn't hear of flooding somewhere else. And that's what your logic is going to imply. Well, it must flood somewhere else, right? Like water in a swimming pool. If it's shallow on one side, it's real tall and going over the other side of the pool. It doesn't work that way with what we're seeing here. Like right there, looks like a desert. And that's along the coast of North Carolina. Coast of North Carolina. That's also coastal North Carolina. Same way here. All right, guys, want to hop over to the Schumann real quick. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there has been some activity in the Schumann. Got some ideas as to where it's coming from, but I can't confirm it, so I just won't say right at this point. But there has been some pretty consistent activity in the Schumann. I noticed something, I'll say this, I noticed something up in Orion a few days ago. Actually, a little over 2 weeks ago. And the observation in Orion was consistent with some of the activity I was seeing in the Schumann, but I couldn't confirm it. So I just kind of, forgot about it really, but I have seen activity, regular activity in the Schumann, lasting for a few hours at a time, and I don't know exactly what is causing it. And I'm sure you guys have already noticed that too. Yellowstone's been pretty quiet. Power outages today. There's obviously still some in Tennessee. That's an ongoing situation there after the EF4 tornado. One of many. There was one EF4, multiple EF2s, I think multiple EF3s. Just an unbelievable scene. We talked about that yesterday. I wasn't sure of what the actual numbers were with regard to the strength of the tornadoes. I found out today there was one EF4, and that has winds of up to 175 miles per hour. Unbelievable. Will take a house completely off of the slab. Just an unbelievable scene. And then to happen at night, like I said, that just was not fair at all. So we don't like to see tornadoes anytime, especially at night. Look for the weather to continue, guys, in the North Atlantic. More storms coming. Like I said earlier, there's the culprit right there. Don't mean to be repetitive, guys. Repetitive. I know I've been repetitive in this video. It's just something that I like talking about. Those water anomalies were something that was very, very intriguing. I know it's old news, but it's news that could come back and be new news again someday. That's all. And I told you guys I would share it today, and I kept my word. Here's what's causing the storms, though, in the North Atlantic, and look for more to come in the week, and actually 2 weeks coming. probably 2 or 3 more, possibly named storms. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a super day, and be safe out there.